Welcome back to Whisper Vault. If you were here a few days back, we ended on something that a few of you said you couldn't stop thinking about, and honestly, same. I still think about that one more than I probably should. Tonight is different. Tonight's story is shorter, quieter, and in some ways that makes it worse. It was sent to me by a listener. I'll call her Dana. She moved into a new apartment last fall. She wanted me to tell it straight, just the facts in the order they happened. This episode is called There Is No Apartment Above Me. I moved into the apartment in October. It wasn't a remarkable place. 3rd floor of a 6-story building in a mid-sized city. I'll leave the details vague because I'm still living here, and I'd prefer to keep it that way for now. The building was older, probably late 70s construction, the kind with thick concrete floors and plaster walls and radiators that tick and hiss when the heat kicks on. It had that smell. Old carpet, faint paint, the specific dusty stillness of a place that hasn't changed much in decades. I wasn't looking for anything special. I just needed something in my price range that wasn't a disaster. This checked the boxes. The landlord, I'll call him Mr. John, showed me around on a Tuesday afternoon. He was polite, reserved, the kind of guy who answers questions precisely and doesn't volunteer much beyond what you ask. He told me the building ran quietly. Older tenants, mostly. No parties. No pets allowed. He said it like he was proud of it, like the silence was a selling point. I took the apartment, signed the lease, moved in 2 weeks later. The first night I woke up at some point. I didn't check the time. I woke to the sound of someone walking above me. Not stomping, not running, just walking, slow and deliberate, back and forth across the ceiling. I lay there for a minute listening. It was rhythmic, like a metronome. Hail, then toe. Hail, then toe. One end of what felt like a narrow space, then back again. I assumed it was a neighbor. Insomnia, maybe. Some people pace when they can't sleep. I've done it myself. I pulled the pillow over my head and eventually drifted off. The second night, same thing. This time I was more awake for it. I remember lying there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, actually listening. It was the same pattern, the same pace, back and forth, measured, unhurried, like whoever it was had no particular destination in mind. They were just moving for the sake of moving. I found myself counting the steps between turns. 7 steps one direction. Pause. 7 steps back. Pause. Over and over. It went on for about 40 minutes and then it stopped. The third night, I checked the clock. 2:17 a.m. That was when it started. I remember looking at the clock, then at the ceiling, and lying there listening to that same slow rhythm for close to an hour before it stopped again. 2:17. I noted it because it seemed oddly specific. Not 2 o'clock, not 2:30, 2:17 on the dot. The next evening, I went back through the building listing I'd saved from when I first found the apartment. I was trying to figure out what unit was directly above mine. The building had numbered apartments on each floor. I was in 4C, which meant 5C should have been directly overhead. But when I scrolled through the listing, there was no 5C. Not in the available units, not in the occupied ones. The listing jumped from the 4th floor to the 6th floor amenities without mentioning the 5th floor at all. I assumed it was a website error. These things happen. Old buildings, lazy property management sites. I didn't think much of it. I called Mr. John the following morning. He answered on the 3rd ring, and I explained what I'd been hearing. The walking, the timing, the pattern. I asked him about the unit above mine. There was a pause before he answered. Not long, maybe 2 seconds, but noticeable. He said, "There isn't an apartment above you." I asked him to explain that. He told me the 5th floor had been partially damaged in a fire years ago. He didn't give me a specific date. He said the damage to that section of the building had been significant enough that the space was sealed off, not demolished, just closed. There'd been plans at some point to renovate it, but that had never happened, and the space had sat unused since then. I told him about the sounds. Another pause. He said he'd come by that evening to take a look. He arrived around 6. He brought a key ring with him, heavy, a lot of keys, and he led me to a maintenance staircase at the end of my hallway that I'd assumed was a utility closet. The door was metal, painted the same beige as the walls, with no label on it. He unlocked it with a flat key and pulled it open. Inside was a narrow staircase. Concrete steps, no railing, a single bare bulb mounted on the wall above. The kind of staircase that's only meant to be used by someone with a reason to be there. We climbed 1 level. At the top of the stairs, there was a door. Heavy, solid core with a deadbolt and a surface-mounted slide bolt, the kind you'd use to secure something from the outside. Both were engaged. Mr. John stood there for a moment before unlocking them. He pushed the door open slowly. The smell hit first. Burnt wood and something musty underneath. Old air, the kind that collects in a space where nothing circulates for a long time. The room beyond was dim, lit only by what filtered through a single narrow window at the far end. As my eyes adjusted, I could see the space more clearly. It wasn't an apartment. It was more like a corridor, maybe 8 feet wide and 30 feet long, running the length of that section of the building. The walls were exposed framing. The ceiling overhead was low, with blackened beams and insulation that had been scorched and never replaced. There was no flooring, just a plywood subfloor, dusty and unfinished. The burn damage was real. You could see where the fire had moved. The char pattern along one wall, the blistering on a section of beam near the center of the room. Whatever had happened here had been serious. And across the plywood floor, in the dust that had settled over years of no movement, there were footprints. I saw them before Mr. John said anything. 2 parallel tracks, running from one end of the space to the other. Back and forth, back and forth. The pattern was worn into the dust, not just one pass, but many. Like someone had walked that same path over and over until the route was grooved into the surface. The prints were clear. Full shoe prints. Heel, then toe. Heel, then toe. They were fresh. The edges were still defined. The surrounding dust was undisturbed, but those tracks were deliberate. Recent. They were walking in the same direction I hear them move at night. Mr. John crouched down near one of the prints and looked at it for a long moment without speaking. I asked him when he'd last been up here. He said, "I haven't been up here in a long time." I asked him if anyone else had a key to the maintenance staircase. He said, "No." We stood there in that burnt-out room for probably 5 minutes without saying much. He walked the length of the space, looked at the prints, checked the window, which was latched from the inside, and looked at the door we'd come through. There was no other way in or out that either of us could see. He relocked everything when we left. Both bolts. He didn't offer an explanation. I didn't push for one because I don't think he had one. That night, I didn't sleep much. I lay in bed with the lamp on, something I almost never do, and I stared at the ceiling. I wasn't expecting anything. I think I was just waiting to see if the nothing would continue. At 2:17, the pacing started. But this time it was different. Before, it had moved back and forth across the full length of the ceiling above me. Now it was centered, right above the head of my bed. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. And for the first time, it didn't turn around immediately. It just stood there. Small movements, maybe a foot in either direction, but directly overhead. Not crossing the room. Not continuing the pattern. Just there. Above the exact spot where I was lying. Like whatever was up there had found where I slept. I've been in this apartment for almost 3 months now. I still hear it most nights. Not every night, but most. It always starts at the same time. It always follows the same pattern. I've asked Mr. John twice more about the space. Both times he's been polite but brief. He had a contractor inspect the structural integrity of the sealed floor, he said. He's added additional locks to the maintenance staircase. Beyond that, he hasn't said much. I haven't gone back up there. I've thought about it. I've thought about going up during the day when it's quiet and just standing in that space and looking at the prints again, seeing if there are new ones, seeing if the pattern has changed. But I haven't done it. I think part of me doesn't want an answer that I can point to and say, that's what it is. Because whatever explanation exists, it doesn't change the fact that something is moving up there. Something that knows where I sleep. Something that starts at 2:17 and doesn't stop until it's ready to stop. A rational mind tries to work through it. Old buildings settle. Sounds travel through concrete and plaster in strange ways. Maybe the prints were old and I misjudged their age in the dim light. Maybe the maintenance staircase key isn't as exclusive as Mr. John believes. Maybe. But I was in that room. I saw those tracks, and I know what I hear every night through the ceiling above my bed. 7 steps. Pause. 7 steps back. I haven't told anyone where I live, and I don't plan to. That's Dana's story. I asked her when she sent it to me whether she was planning to move. She said she'd thought about it, but she also said something that stuck with me. She said, "The thing is, I don't know that moving would change anything. I don't know what this is or where it comes from, and I'm not sure my address has anything to do with it. I don't know what to do with that. I'm not sure she does either." What I keep coming back to is the footprints, the sealed room, the bolts engaged from the outside, the window latched from within. The landlord who went quiet when he saw the tracks and didn't offer a single explanation. There are things I can explain away in this story if I try hard enough. And there's one thing I can't. Whatever left those prints got into a room that was locked from the outside. And it got out of a room with a window locked from the inside. I've tried to come up with an explanation that makes the world feel normal again. I haven't found one. If you're listening in the dark tonight, keep the lights on a little longer. This has been Whisper Vault.